Hello, my name is Noor. I'm going to talk about coordinated management of meaning, or CMM. Here's a quick overview of what I'm going to talk. So the backgrounds of CMMs, coordinated management of meaning was established by W. Burnett, Pierce, and Werner Coordinate in the 1980s. Pierce and Coordinate originally called CMMs interpretive theories of social and behavioral sciences. Pierce and Coordinate offers the coordinated management of meaning as a theories that looks directly at the communication process and what it's doing. Both believe that communication is a constitutive force that shapes all of our ideas, relationships, and our whole social environment. However, due to its complexity, Pierce and Coordinate decides to develop 4 claims to help us understand the theory. And then the first claim is how our communication creates our social world. Self, relationships, organizations, communities, and cultures are the stuff that make up our social worlds. Burnett Pierce summed up this core concepts of the theories by asserting that persons and communication co-construct their own social realities and simultaneously shapes the worlds they create. Pierce believed that the way people communicate is often more important than the contents of what they say. For example, the mood and the manners that person communication adopt play a large role in the process of social construction. And then CM theories and protectioners are social constructions. This is where cares participants are in a pluralistic world. They live in pluralistic worlds because they assume that people make multiple truths rather than finding a singular truth. For example, they are carers rather than servants. They are participants rather than spectators. Again, they live in a pluralistic world rather than seeking a single truth. And the second claims the stories we tell different from the story we live. The term stories refers to much of what we say when we talk with others about our social world. Self, others, relationships, organizations, or the large community. Both of them claim that communications is a two-sided process of theory, told and story lived. Definitions of story told: the narrative is a narrative that we use to make sense of our stories live. It used the LUU. How we say this model is a LUT model, I think. Focus on the tensions between our story lived and our story told. For example, the tension can be increased or decreased by the manner in which the stories are present. I'm going to talk about this model on the later slide. So, story lived, the definition is that the co-construction actions we present with other. That's the story lived. This use the subroutines model direct our attention to the back and forthness of social interaction. Look like a snake crawling from one point to the other point. For example, debating between two teams or a mock trial, conversations jumping back and forth between both parties. And the third claim, we get what we make. We create our social worlds through our patterns of communication. It's followed that we get what we make. Pierce claims that we ask 3 questions when we reflect on past interactions in the midst of current conversations or what we're going to say in the future. Those 3 questions are: how did that get made? What are we making? What can we do to make better social worlds? And the last claim, or the fourth claim, get the pattern right. create a better social world. Pierce admits that he could not be specific because each situation is different. He fears that those who are a precise image of what the ideal social world should be will try to compel others to live within their visions, end up making things worse. Pierce and his wife describe better social world as repelled with caring, compassion, love, grace among its inhabitants, not the stated goals of most communication theory. Communicator must be mindful. They add that mindfulness is a presence of awareness of what participants are making in the midst of their conversations. For example, one is mindful participant thinks before they start to speak, and they speak with more. They think before they can say stuff to make the conversation better. They observe, step back, look for a place in the conversations where they can say or do something that will make the situation better for everyone to be involved. For example, a real life example would be a police officer de-escalates a suicidal situation. And then lastly, CMM theories advocates dialogue, a specific forms of communication that they believe will create a social world where we can live with dignity, honor, joy, and love. And the two rules of CMM, constructive rule, is how behavior should be interpreted within a given context. This is where communicators make an interaction to understand the winds or message from others. Here its interpretations help us to understand the meaning of the message. And then the fourth bullet is the same as the top one. Sorry on that. Example of this rule is how I say I love you to my wife is have a different meaning to how I say I love you to my friends. They have the different meanings, different interpretations. Regulative rules is focused on how communicators react for the message, how they respond or behave toward the message they receive. And then three processes that CMM relies on. The first one is coherence. The process of making and management meanings by telling stories. We construct meanings for everything that is happening around us. This helps us understanding and interpreting the world around us, how we understand things around us. And then the second one is coordinations. Refer to the process by which persons collaborate in attempts to bring their visions of what is necessary, noble, good, and to preclude the enactments of what they fear, hate, or disputes. And then the last one is mysteries. Burnett and Kim Pierce, or which is Burnett wife, use the term mysteries to cover everything that relevance is not or cannot be said. This explains that not everything in the world can be explained, and the world we live in is sometimes a mystery. Here's the first model, LOOTS again. It's an acronym that identifies the 7 types of stories that are communicated. The first one is life stories or live stories. We live what we actually did or are doing. Unknown stories, information is missing. The third one is untold stories, what we chose not to say. Fourth, unheard stories, what we say that isn't heard or acknowledged. Fifth, untellable stories that are forbidden or too painful for us to tell. Sixth, storytellings, the manner in which we communicate. 7, story told, what we say we are doing. This model usually focuses on the tension between our story lived and our story told. The tension can be increased or decreased by the manner in which the stories are presented. And then the second model is the subroutines model. Now, direct our attention to the back and furnace of social interactions, or like a snake crawling from one person or groups to another back again. This communicates the idea of story lived and the attempts to translate the results and reactions that make contradict the original idea trying to be suppressed. The subroutine models can analyze any conversations and maps out its story. Here's an example of how this model looks like. And then the criticisms and weaknesses of CM is that CM is too broad in its scopes and highly abstract in its nature. CM has missed many of the linguistic, internationals, and theoretical nuance necessary for understanding the communication meaning. Clarity has serious limited CM's wide user. The theory has a repetitive or reputations of beings a confused mix of ideas that are hard to pin down because they suppress convoluted language. Here are some real-life examples. CM's concepts have been applied to solve interactive problems and social issues in a variety of ways, such as, therapist. It's used in therapists, family therapy, counselor, doctor, teachers, research consultants, mediators, and police officers. All this apply to CM. They have used some sorts of CMs into their professions. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoy this presentations. Again, thank you.